Story 1. As someone who used to be obsessed with body image, I had very defined abs. Over time I realized I like beer and desserts, so while I still have abs I am not nearly as defined, and I honestly prefer the latter. I would rather have a decent physique and enjoy food than a great physique and not be able to eat anything I enjoy. It is about balance. Main point: do not worry so much about body image. The main reason to go to the gym is for physical and mental health. Former trainer. Story 2. Someone told me there are more millionaires in the United States of America than people with six-pack abs. New life goal. Story 3. I went from being chubby to having a six-pack in about a year and a half. It involved a lot of crunches and a closely watched diet. I guess it was worth it, but I am chubby again 5 years later, so who knows? Story 4. Here's the thing. I'm a 40-year-old woman. I have 3 children and have had a six-pack since I was young. I was a gymnast for much of my childhood, which may have helped. I'm healthy and exercise, but not obsessively. I mostly eat what I want. After having my children, my six-pack returned. I believe genetics play a large role. I don't work for it. Story 5. Was not everyone just born with them? I assume they are still there under my gut. They are totally worth having. Let me stand up straight. 10 out of 10. Story 6. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and chant, "Give me abs, O Lord. Show thy mercy." Every 3 a.m. for 1 year. Story 7. Lots of exercise and a careful diet. Yes, it is worth all the work. Story 8. I no longer have visible abdominal muscles. I am a strength athlete, and in my 20s I weighed around 230 pounds and had a six-pack. The answer to this question is always diet. Genetics help, but diet is king. Exercise other than cardiovascular training does not help in a meaningful way unless you are starting from zero muscle development. Even cardiovascular exercise is far less important than diet for losing fat. Some muscle development is necessary, but you can have a six-pack at 110 pounds. Abdominal muscle hypertrophy has diminishing returns in terms of aesthetics, and doing 1,000 crunches is not very helpful. It actually becomes more difficult to have a six-pack the more muscular you try to be, because you have to eat and gain weight to build muscle. You can do it, but it is exponentially harder and a huge hassle. The diet required to maintain a bodybuilder-type physique is extremely strict and generally sustainable only part of the time. It is possible to be thin with visible abdominal muscles all the time by eating to lose or maintain weight. Story 9. I did CrossFit for 5 years and developed a very strong core. In my 4th year, I locked in my nutrition. I was around 20% body fat before focusing on nutrition. After 6 to 8 weeks of proper nutrition, my abdominal muscles became visible. I maintained that for a few months, but I decided I preferred indulging in treats and junk food more than I liked having visible abdominal muscles. Story 10. No. I had them for about 6 months. Then I realized they only helped me attract women, and, lo and behold, they didn't work. Crazy. I lost my abdominal muscles and gained a sense of humor. Apparently humor works better. Story 11. It all depends on body fat percentage. I have never cared about visible abs. I would take them if they were free and effortless, but when it comes to taking care of myself and working toward the physique I want, they are not a goal of mine. Story 12. Eat less. It doesn't matter how large you build your muscles if they are covered by a layer of fat. Story 13. I thought women would pay attention to me if I had muscles. Now that I do, I can confirm they do not care about muscles the way I was told growing up. Story 14. I mostly won the genetic lottery. It's easy for me to have moderate abdominal definition, and if I watch what I eat for a couple of months, my abs become very defined. I have active hobbies, but I don't really exercise anymore and I eat a lot. One thing I have noticed is that drinking hides them quickly. I don't drink much, but in the couple of years I drank more often. My midsection softened up quickly. Thankfully, it returned to normal just as quickly when I stopped. Story 15. Go hiking or walking with a 20-pound backpack to force your core to work, or go to the gym. I did a 40-mile 3-day hike in the mountains with a 35-pound bag. I trained with a 20 to 25-pound bag for a few weeks beforehand, doing 4 to 8 miles a few times a week. I definitely lost some belly fat and my abdominal muscles are showing after a long absence. Story 16. I started with lots of crunches and leg raises. Once I had decent core strength, I progressed to slow, eccentric dragon flags and did nothing else for the abdominal muscles. I performed 2 to 3 abdominal workouts per week while losing fat. At about 14% body fat, the abdominal muscles began to show, and they became fully visible at about 12%. I like the look. Women I date like them, and reducing body fat percentage produced a large overall improvement in my appearance. I am in my 30s, and if I could go back, I would aim for that look before age 20. Story 17. It starts in the kitchen. Calories matter. A little exercise is great, but a six-pack is made in the kitchen. Story 18. Diets, to be honest, are not worth it. Whenever I go on them, I'm pretty unhappy. Instead, I live my life about 5 to 10 pounds above my normal abs weight, go to the gym regularly, stay fit, and don't worry too much about occasionally eating unhealthy foods. Story 19. The more muscle you gain and the fitter you get, the more calories you can eat at maintenance. The first time I cut was very hard. I ended up eating 1,400 calories a day to get a six-pack. It was tough and not worth it. Then I slow bulked for 3 years straight and gained about 35 pounds. The next cut to a six-pack never went below 2,000 calories per day. Definitely worth it. Story 20. I have always been skinny. I did 50 sit-ups a day for a month straight. Yes, it was worth it. As a skinny person, it was good to be muscular in one part of my body. They are fading now, so I should probably do that again. Story 21. The best abdominal workout is Power 90 Extreme Abdominal Ripper X. Takes about 15 minutes, and no equipment is required. It is brutally hard but effective. Do it a couple of times a week while you work on slimming down with cardio, weightlifting, and a proper diet. Story 22. Strict diet. Watch what you eat depending on your body type and consume specific macronutrient ratios of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And of course, work out. For me, calisthenics worked best. I stopped following through a few years ago, but I got a new job and my schedule is now good for meal prepping and working out. So I'm looking forward to getting back into shape. I have a picture of my 4-month progress, and it was impressive. Story 23. I stopped stuffing my face 3 times a day. The work is not that bad. It is the food you eat. Story 24. 15-second break between sets. Plank for 45 seconds. Bicycle kicks for 45 seconds. Russian twists for 45 seconds. Hold a dumbbell or weight if you can. Leg raises for 45 seconds. VUPS for 45 seconds. Mountain climbers for 45 seconds. Then repeat the circuit until you reach muscle failure and cannot continue. Do this for 6 weeks to see results. If you are skinny, you will likely see visible abdominal muscles. If you are not skinny, you may not see them, but your abdominal muscles will be stronger and you will feel the difference. Story 25. Getting abs is partly genetics and partly hard work. You still need core training, clean eating, and low body fat. Even if they don't show naturally, the strength and shape you gain make it totally worth it. Seeing my body like this? Every drop of sweat counts. Story 26. When I had abdominal muscles, it was because I worked out 6 days a week and was too poor to afford food. That combination was effective. Now I work out 3 days a week, eat like a normal person, and look healthy. My abdominal muscles only show when I really flex them. Story 27. I am working on getting mine back and adding definition to my arms. Luckily, I have always found sit-ups easy, and I can do 20 to 30 in one session twice a day. Progress is slow because I am not one to change my diet, but the photos show improvement. Story 28. Years of relentless cardio, toning work, and eating like a bird led me to have abdominal muscles. I do not miss them. Story 29. Yes, I would say that. I enjoy exercise and I do not eat much, so I would not say that I worked very hard for them. Story 30. I often tell people I have a six-pack both above and below my abs. Story 31. Whether it is worth the work depends on where you are starting from. I have always been lean, so my abs have been visible. Story 32. I have always had them, but I have been on the lean side. I have done nothing to earn or keep them. It is just genetics and a low appetite. Story 33. Mine are not very defined, but they are visible again now. I used to have a six-pack in high school, then got pretty chunky in college. My peak weight was 260 pounds at 5 feet 11 inches. 95% of it comes from the kitchen. Visible abdominal muscles are primarily a product of a low body fat percentage. Well-defined abdominal muscles also require exercise. It was worth the work, but not for the abdominal muscles. I did it for myself. I really need to ramp up my gym work because I am starting to look like a mole rat. Laughing out loud. Story 34. I play water polo, and my abdominal muscles are developing. I practice 2 hours in the pool, up to 3 times a week, swimming back and forth with a ball without touching the bottom. I follow a ketogenic diet that is easy to maintain. I use monk fruit to sweeten my water or tea so I can satisfy my sweet tooth, and ketosis helps reduce cravings. It is worth it because I have fun in the pool and come out refreshed and clean. Story 35. Part of it is due to body composition and where I typically store fat. I naturally store a little fat in my abdomen, and that, coupled with years of physical activity such as weight training and calisthenics and eating well, has produced good abdominal definition. Story 36. When I was 18, I worked out for 90+ minutes twice a day. Being 19 in college and very muscular was fun. At 32, I am much happier with a leaner, healthier build and a stomach that still has strong abdominal muscles, just barely defined and hidden by my love of beer. Story 37. I was a long-time distance runner for decades, and that activity burned a lot of calories. Now I am older, use a cane about once a week, and have a bit of belly fat. Amusingly, the shape of my abdominal muscles left permanent wrinkles in the skin there. I call them flabdominals. I did not think of running as work. I enjoyed it. If it were not for my ankle, I would still be running a lot. I usually bicycle to keep the weight down while avoiding stress on my ankle, but I suffered an unrelated head injury this year. It is amazing how quickly you can gain weight with no exercise. Story 38. I religiously used the Lose It app and weighed all my food while consistently working out. It was not worth it in the end because it became too much and I stopped after about 6 months. Story 39. Ensure your daily caloric intake is less than your maintenance calories. Maintenance calories increase with exercise, which means you can eat more when you are working out. You will not go from excess body fat to visible abdominal muscles without being in a calorie deficit. For those who say they do not watch what they eat, note that if you lost fat and now have visible abdominal muscles, you were in a calorie deficit. Story 40. Way too much work, especially as you get older. At some point, the diet, exercise, and sleep required become quite intense. You are looking at going to the gym almost every day and properly preparing your meals. Story 41. I worked out a lot, dieted, and lost a bunch of weight. I trained my abdominal muscles like any other muscle. I like the weighted crunch machine at the gym. Do a slow full crunch as if you were trying to smell your groin, then return very slowly. The abdominals work both ways in terms of spinal flexion. Add some leg raises and you will eventually have ravioli abs. Story 42. Jiu-jitsu will change your life, and you will develop abdominal muscles without even noticing. Story 43. I have always had them. I am 46 years old now, and playing pickleball about 6 hours a week keeps them visible. Story 44. Diet and exercise don't really feel like work. They're more about discipline. Eating healthily and working out feel as natural as sleep. I can't go without them. Eating less to lower my body fat is tough. Story 45. They are great. I want to keep mine looking new, so I keep a nice protective layer of fat on top. Story 46. I am a thin man and have always had defined abs. Is this focus on body image worth it? Probably not. Just be healthy and take care of yourself. Abs are not necessarily and often are not a sign of being healthy. Story 47. The most I ever got was a 4-pack, and that was from running 3 to 4 miles a day every day for 4 years. Genetics matter. I still weigh only 160 pounds, but I gained great cardiovascular fitness from it. Story 48. I have had them since I was 10 years old because I have never been overweight, so I never had to do anything to get them. As I am approaching my 30s, I am losing them and I do not care. Story 49. I worked out 6 times a week, all sessions very intense, using the workout program Insanity. I lifted weights multiple times per week and monitored my diet closely. No candy, fried food, soda, desserts, or pastries, except on a weekly cheat day. I did that for 2 months straight and went from having no abdominal definition and an average build to defined abdominal muscles. The problem was that it was difficult to maintain that lifestyle, and I did not want to continue. Story 50. Eat less and reach a lower body fat percentage, 15% or less for men. Is it worth it? It depends on whether you want visible abdominal muscles. Story 51. Stop doing crunches. Try exercises such as hanging leg lifts, perform slowly and with control, and L-sits. The more control and the slower you go, the better. Story 52. It's worth it if you are single and nothing else worked. Getting very fit will always be a net positive in the dating world. I went from never being approached by women to being approached and noticed regularly when I was fit. The abdominal muscles did not play a role because I was usually dressed in those situations, but I wore well-fitting clothes that highlighted my physique and my well-defined arms, shoulders, and trapezius muscles. The abs were a nice bonus when we hung out. Story 53. I had a job with an insulation company, crawling under houses and packing insulation between floor trusses. Most of the work was done lying on my back and repeatedly crunching to run a string or pole and push insulation up all day. Story 54. I went from 180 pounds to 162 pounds. I had visible abdominals and was very lean. Did it look great? Yes, but it was incredibly hard. So many nights I went to bed hungry and had cravings. I am now 190 pounds, heavier but more muscular. I no longer have visible abdominals and I feel better now. Story 55. Yes, it is worth the work. It becomes easier once you reach maintenance. Control your diet and do weighted exercises to make your muscles more defined, so even if your body fat increases slightly, they will still be visible. This is very attainable for anyone with discipline, assuming no medical issues. Story 56. A major caloric deficit and constant lifting are required. Yes, it is worth all the work. Being fat is disgusting. Story 57. I lost my abdominal definition because I had a medical issue and paused going to the gym. A large part of my visible abdominal muscles and obliques was due to genetics and being thin before I started training intensely. I went to the gym 5 times a week, and regardless of my focus, I always included an abdominal circuit. It was worth it. When I look back at pictures from that time, I feel sad that I do not look like that anymore. Story 58. I got into bodybuilding and was very lean at about age 18. I became lean again occasionally over the years when I pushed for summer. Based on replies, it seems easier for some people, but for me, I must follow a very strict calorie deficit and precise macronutrient targets, and eventually feel almost starving to get abdominal definition. Even then, I do not get as shredded as I could as a teenager. The last time I did it was for Halloween 2 years ago, and it burned me out badly. At the end, as a 30-year-old 6 feet 1 inch, about 180-pound man, I had to reduce intake to around 1,500 calories per day to keep losing weight, and it was miserable. For now, I try to be comfortable looking muscular without visible abdominal muscles. Getting that lean does mess with your head. Story 59. Perform squats and standing shoulder presses. Use heavy weights so your core will really engage. Story 60. Achieving that level required a lot of discipline and probably caused disordered eating and body dysmorphia. Even so, any body fat level below about 12% was a pretty miserable experience. I cannot think of a single upside, except that a couple of friends over the last 10 years said I looked jacked. It served no athletic purpose. In fact, I was probably stronger and more physically powerful when I was bulked, so my abdominal muscles were not visible. Story 61. My wife finds some of my meals gross. I find them fine because they are filling. Sometimes I eat chicken, rice, and spinach with different seasonings. She cannot eat like that. Having visible abdominal muscles depends on your diet. When I had them, I was very careful with my diet. Now they are visible, though not extreme, and my diet is not sustainable for everyone. Whether it is worth it depends on your food preferences and whether you can maintain the diet. Story 62. The problem is you have to be skinny to get visible abdominal muscles unless you are willing to put in 7 or more years of hard work. At this point, you have not succeeded elsewhere in 99% of cases unless you became successful when young and later became very muscular. Even if you are muscular, you still have to be below a certain percent body fat for the abdominal muscles to be visible. Story 63. I had them for about a year in my mid-20s. I was already fairly skinny, so it was not too difficult, but I had to go out of my way for it. People who say everyone has them and you just need to diet are wrong. I did lots of abdominal will exercises, cable crunches, and planks after nearly every workout. I hate to say it, but that is how a friends with benefits situation started. Story 64. At my peak, I was 9% body fat with defined abs. This came from going to the gym 4 times a week and eating the same meal twice a day. That was easy because chicken thigh with garlic salt and mixed herbs is delicious and a game changer compared to chicken breast. There is no real secret formula, just time and consistency. I grew up chubby and wanted to prove to myself I could do it. To answer the question, yes, it was worth the effort, although it was not maintainable in the long term. Story 65. I did not have to work for it. I have very little appetite, and I love climbing and cycling. It was easy. Story 66. Visible abdominal muscles depend much more on having a low body fat percentage than on abdominal strength. The key is maintaining a low-fat diet and high overall activity, especially endurance exercise, to lower body fat. Doing a few sit-ups is optional. Most people I know with very strong abdominal muscles do not have visible abdominal definition. Funny how that works. Story 67. My normal eating habits generally allow me to maintain my abdominal muscles. If by all the work you mean eating as usual, then it is fine. I do not pay much attention to them since they are not very symmetrical. I am trying to gain weight, but everything keeps getting in the way. Story 68. I developed abs because I was skinny and started going to the gym. After that, it didn't matter what I ate. I always kept them. Story 69. You can look at my post history for proof. My progress is due to a combination of genetics, regular weight training for more than 15 years, and watching what I eat within reason. The more you work out, the more you can eat. The key word is enjoy. Find an activity you enjoy and it will be a much more pleasant experience. Story 70. I never struggled to get abdominal muscles. Genetically, I do not store much extra weight in my abdomen. Because I enjoy exercise, it was not hard. To achieve defined legs, I was very strict with my diet. To be honest, it was not worth it. The rest of my body suffered, and I was always tired. Story 71. Only you can answer if it's worth it, but for me it is. It comes down to a reasonable diet, consistent exercise, and, to some degree, genetics. I spend about 10 minutes every night before bed. In practice, that is about 5 times a week, which still adds up to almost an hour of abdominal work per week on top of other workouts. I pick one song for bicycle crunches and one song for side planks, switching sides halfway through. This week, I used Lord's 400 Lux and Portugal, The Man's Head is Like a Flame. I can barely get through them, and when I'm done, I feel great. 2-minute side planks and 5 minutes of bicycle crunches is the goal. If you can do that, you're golden, though I am usually short of that before I reach my limit. I'm not sure what you're starting with, but I'm not exceptionally low in body fat, so it is definitely possible. Give it a shot. Try that for a year and you will have at least some definition. Good luck. Story 72. I have had visible abdominal muscles twice in my life. I'm lucky to have them now. The circumstances were very different. In my late 20s, I did CrossFit, tracked macronutrients and calories, and ate a Paleolithic-style diet. I still drank alcohol a couple of nights a week. In my mid-40s, I focused on a high-protein, low-carbohydrate approach, lifted heavy weights, and drank red wine every day. I had a 13 to 14-year gap in abdominal muscle visibility. Honestly, it feels easier now. It is routine and I love meat. Story 73. Daily jogging and workouts are worth it because they boost self-confidence. Story 74. I oriented my life around training martial arts, including Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and mixed martial arts, while still making sufficient income to get by and preserving my career. This was achievable by moving to Southeast Asia and working part-time in my career field as a freelancer while training up to 36 hours a week. I developed visible abdominal muscles and had an amazing time for about 4 years. Eventually, a lack of savings and a pension started to bother me, so I moved back to the United Kingdom and took a higher-paying full-time job. After 6 years of that, I no longer have visible abdominal muscles. I still train a few times a week, but I am now 40 years old and work long hours. I would love to retire back to my martial arts lifestyle one day, albeit at a more age-appropriate training volume. Story 75. I have worked out consistently for years, but I enjoy food too much to keep my diet completely clean. This summer, I decided I wanted to finally see myself with visible abdominal muscles. After trimming down for a few months, doing cardio consistently, weight training, getting my steps in, and dialing in my nutrition, I finally achieved visible abdominal muscles. The entire process was challenging and fun, so it was worth it. I feel amazing, healthy, strong, and full of energy. I finally look good in clothes I usually would not dare to wear. Now I feel it is not worth returning to my previous condition, so I will increase my calories to gain more muscle and do a lean bulk. I will then cut down to have visible abdominal muscles again before next summer. To me, that seems the most sustainable approach as a natural lifter. Story 76. A great many years ago, my sister's friend lent her a digital versatile disc titled Tight on Time by Tammy Lee Webb. It had 3 different workouts, each lasting 10 minutes. I began the 10-minute abdominal workout using 3-pound dumbbells and, over the course of a year, worked up to 10-pound dumbbells and increased the repetitions from 8 to 10. If I do the workout 3 to 4 times a week and 20 push-ups a day, my abdominal muscles are great. Unfortunately, I have an unrelated injury and cannot do my usual workouts. I found it. The abdominal segment starts at 4 minutes 44 seconds. You get to lie down for the whole workout. Story 77. I used to have them in my 20s. To be honest, they were a lot of work. I had to count calories very closely. Story 78. I do not know your age, but for me the easiest way to start making progress was the 8-minute abs workout on YouTube. You do the whole 8 minutes, but you can go as slowly as you need to make it doable. It is also hilarious and from the 1990s. I used to be slow and exhausted at the end, but after a couple of weeks I was able to speed up and really push myself and get a good workout. Plus it is quick and you can do it in the living room. Story 79. Hard work, dedication, willpower, and discipline. Yes, it was worth it. If done correctly, you can still enjoy life and feel comfortable with your shirt off anytime, anywhere. Story 80. Oh, what a long road I have walked. Reader's Digest version. At 41, I was pregnant and weighed 356 pounds. I am now 60 and weigh 130. My lowest ever was 126. I work out regularly at the gym and my stomach was cramping a lot, even when I was not working out. I go to a massage school and the instructor said they did stomach massages, so I thought, why not? I had this student before, and after a couple of minutes I could tell he was worried about something. Usually the teacher comes by the cubicles about halfway through the massage, but he called her to come in then, if she was free. She felt my abdomen, and he explained in terms I did not understand what the issue was. She started to laugh and said, "Those are abs, very strong abs." Holy shitting Jesus, one of the best compliments ever. The student was great. He said he had not done many stomach massages, and the ones he had done before felt very different. Yes, 100%, it was worth it. Now go get yourself some abs. Story 81. Visible abdominal muscles are primarily the result of diet, not exercise. Abdominal exercises can make them stand out more, but your time in the gym is probably better spent on other muscle groups. Story 82. I worked out for 1.5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 years, ate a very healthy diet, and developed an 8-pack. It was worth it for me because I was very healthy, but I went a bit overboard. I think having visible abdominal muscles can be healthy. A 6-pack or 8-pack may be less healthy if it is difficult to achieve or if it leads to eating disorders or an excessive obsession with body image or exercise. This is especially true for women, because their bodies naturally require more body fat to maintain health, and having a six-pack may mean they are too thin to support the fat-soluble hormones their bodies need to function properly. Story 83. I got serious about nutrition. It was 100% worth it. It is a constant visual reminder of prolonged discipline and dedication that sets me apart from 95% of the population. I did not see my abdominal muscles until I was 34, about 10 years ago, and I have had them ever since, except for a few bulking periods that went too long. Even then, I was no more than about 10 pounds away from them. As others have said, it is not about the abdominal exercises but about getting lean. That said, dedicated abdominal work will make them deeper and make them pop more. Story 84. I am trying to improve my abdominal muscles right now. Most advice I read says to lower body fat and lift heavy. I see my stomach changing, but I need to reduce my body fat a bit more. I used to hate abdominal workouts because of the high repetitions, but I am enjoying the low, heavy repetitions. Cable crunches, side chops, and the captain's chair. They feel like my other workouts. Story 85. I do not know if you are talking about aesthetics. If you are, a strong core protects your back. Talk to someone with back problems and ask how much they would give to have avoided them. Story 86. I was born. Was it worth it? I do not know. What was the alternative? Non-existence? Existence without abdominal muscles? Both sound pretty poor, so I will take having abdominal muscles. Story 87. Hard work, but it's worth it. You just have to keep up with it or you'll lose them. Story 88. If you have to be so lean to have visible abdominal muscles, it is impractical. Story 89. As someone who likes pizza, it is absolutely not worth it. I had to carefully track every calorie. You can look good and fit while still having a thin layer of fat over your muscles. Chiseled abdominal muscles, at least for me, required serious work. Story 90. You get abs in the kitchen, not the gym. At a minimum, all you need to do is eat less. Story 91. I have had more pronounced abdominal muscles, but I still have them now when the light hits just right. It is a lot of work, but it is straightforward. Eat a high-protein diet, do 30 minutes on a treadmill at an incline, and lift heavy weights. Cut down on calories and junk food. Do this for 3 to 4 months and you will develop visible abdominal muscles. Story 92. You are asking the wrong people because you cannot see us. You should go on an abdominal muscle search. Ask everyone you see to show you their stomachs. If they have visible abdominal muscles, ask them. Story 93. My car came with an anti-lock braking system as standard. It was an option on my motorcycle. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.